Hey everyone, today we're going to look at the first narrow gauge engine Bachmann released for their Thomas & Friends line, Skarloey. He has been available for about a decade now, and since then there have been several other real and Thomas themed engines released for 009. Although he's not quite as popular as when he was first announced, he's still a good model overall. I managed to get mine for Christmas in 2018, and today I'll discuss the things that I like and dislike about him. One of the first things you may notice about Skarloey is that, while his face and livery are accurate to the CGI series, most of his body proportions and detail are modeled after Taliclin, Skarloey's real-life basis. However, the changes made are relatively minor and mainly affect things such as the buffers, rivet patterns, and wheels. As you can see, the livery is very well applied, with the lining being straight and smooth. The name and number plates are also legible and look very sharp. You can see that there is a bit of a scratch in the lining on Skarloey's cylinder, but that is because I accidentally pushed him off the table once. You can also see that he has a lot more rivets here than he did in the show, since Bachmann used Taliclin as a reference. Additionally, the same can be said for the wheels. Looking at his front, you can see that his face looks extremely accurate to the CGI era of the show, and his pupils and eyebrows are applied straight and don't have any scratches. You can also see his front sandboxes, the riveting and coupling hook on his buffer beam, and the slot where the actual coupling goes. As mentioned before, you can see that his buffers are larger than they were in the show, matching the real locomotive's buffers instead. Here's a look at Skarloey's funnel, which is molded very nicely and looks accurate to both the CGI model and the real locomotive. There's even the little ring here, which could be painted gold to match Skarloey's Season 4 model. Skarloey also has molded handrails on top of his smoke box and on his saddle tank that are painted silver. Unfortunately, the molding for the handrails on his tank don't protrude out very much, and pretty much blend into the lining from a distance. Here you can see Skarloey's coal bunkers and cab, which for the most part look very nice. The coal bunker on this side looks a little different than it did in the show, with the design being pulled from Taliclin. Skarloey's dome and whistle look very nice, and his cab windows are nicely lined with gold. A common complaint here is that you can't see through the front windows due to there being a metal sheet in the cab. Skarloey's other side also looks really good and has pretty much the same detail that we've seen before. However, Skarloey's bunker on this side has a larger box covering part of it. Something that is interesting is that, although the other bunker pulled its design from Taliclin, this one pulls its design from Skarloey's CGI model, since it's filled with coal instead of being a flat sheet of metal on top. It's a little strange that the bunkers ended up with this design inconsistency, but I digress. Something I forgot to mention earlier is that Skarloey's cylinders are a bit oversized here, when compared to his CGI render or the real locomotive, and the crosshead is made out of plastic, which almost looks a little transparent sometimes. Looking at the back of Skarloey, there's actually quite a bit of detail here. The cab windows are again picked out in gold, there's a tail lamp and additional lamp irons painted in silver, and there's even a number plate on as well, which looks quite nice. The buffer beam also looks as good as the front one did. Despite having a few flaws, Skarloey is still quite a good looking model overall, but let's see how well he runs. Now that Skarloey is on the track, we can see that he runs pretty smoothly both forwards and in reverse, and he's able to do a decent crawl, but not quite as good as some of the other engines that I have. He's also pretty good at starting from a stop without cutting out or needing to be pushed. Skarloey is also able to run over pretty much all of the points that I have on my layout without stalling, including the Y point, which is nice to see. He does end up stalling a little bit right here, but that is because I forgot to switch the point that he was running onto and I accidentally caused a short circuit. Unfortunately, Skarloey is a little bit of a weaker model, and this is about as much as he can pull before he starts to slip around curves. In conclusion, even though Skarloey has a few visual flaws, he's still a pretty solid model overall, and still looks good with the other engines. He's a pretty smooth and consistent runner as well, despite not being very strong. I'd say that he's still worth adding to your collection, especially if you're interested in modeling the Skarloey Railway. I hope you all enjoyed the video. See you next time.